Want to become strong like Superman, graceful like Wonder Woman, and skilled like Batman? Here are 8 of the oldest sports in the world that can help you to unlock hidden superpowers you may never have thought about. Welcome to One Away. Make sure to watch this video till the end, as you'll learn some of the amazing truths about these sports that'll explore part of your human capacity you weren't even aware of. Before that, please leave us a like if you find this video useful. And subscribe to our channel for updates on our latest videos. Born a runner. Before one can walk, one needs to crawl. And, before the human was human, a human was but an ape. Until, of course, humanity was able to rise above it. But it was when humans learned to run, that really put the species forward, in terms of immediate survival. Not the only one, but among the first advantages that humans have. Christopher McDougall, the author of books like Born to Run, highlights that if there is any skill that humans have had, it is the ability to commit to persistent endurance run. Apes are quick and strong but are not great at bipedal runs. A similar disadvantage is found for the lion and tiger. A horse and cheetah can run really fast but need to catch their breath, at one point or another. McDougall argues that, aside from bipedalism, it was humanity's ability to sweat it out that put us ahead of the pack, in terms of endurance. It's of no surprise then that the hunter-gatherer tribes of the Tarahumara, and the San tribe are among some of the most endurance-oriented, barefoot and all. This is not to suggest that humans cannot compete with others in the manner of sprints. But, the propensity for humans to go the distance is much more common, across almost a demographic. We cannot all become Usain Bolt, but parents and grandparents can train themselves for short and long distances. One of the legendary feats when it comes to runs is the ancient Greek story of Phidippides, and his mission to deliver a message to the city of Marathon at the expense of his life. Today, the sport of the marathon and ultramarathon is established from that very story. The strong lift. Though not necessarily a trendsetter of an activity, lifts are part of humanity's DNA. From tribal villages to the manual labor of civilizations to modern household furniture, almost everyone is an athlete in this respect. It is only normal to know that Olympic lifts have been a legitimate, albeit less popular, sport in the Olympic Games. But, for as old the sport of strong lifts are, they have had a resurgence over the years, thanks in part to the golden age of bodybuilding, back in the days of Arnold Schwarzenegger at Muscle Beach, Venice, California. And, some athletes today are even eager to return to an age before modern bodybuilding. The age of Victorian strongmen, and the age of Eugene Sandow and George Harkenschmidt. One only needs to see the fandom that surrounds the strongmen in Scandinavia, to know that strong lifts are alive and well. Or, even in the stories of African American legend, John Henry Irons, who outworked the hammer machine. Even regular folk have taken a fancy to the sport, as strong lifts are a regular, if not most trained part, in Reebok's version of the Olympics, the CrossFit Games. The flight of the swim. Activities that involve the water are usually reserved for those in the coastal areas. Many times, it's not even considered a sport, and more of a vacation pastime. You can especially see this many beaches-based or pool-based sports, such as volleyball, water polo, surfing, water skis, and even choreographed gymnastics. Apart from all the flash, the swim in a body of water remains one of the oldest, and most underappreciated sports around. The swim has been part of almost any human culture. For leisure, for the procurement of food, and for exploration under the oceans. But, it's the sport's oldest contribution that proves most important. It's one of the skills needed to survive. The swim is not part of physical education today, not because it's fun, but because its training is still needed today. None more so highlights this than Earl Liederman, in his book, Endurance. He points out that, any man, or any person, must run at top speed, 200 yards or more. Jump over obstacles higher than their waist. Pull their body upwards by the strength of their arms, until the chins touch their hands, 15 to 20 times. Dip between parallel bars or between two chairs, 25 times or more. And swim a mile or more. Wise words from a Superman. The mountain climb. One of the greatest activities under the tag of action-adventure is the sport of the mountaineer. Due to its associations with the cold mountains, it's also been termed as alpine climbs. The more leisure-based version is known as the rock climb. And, the more urban, well-harnessed version is the wall climb. The action-adventure is usually reserved for the alpine climb and the rock climb. While today's audience sees these climbs as new or sensational, mountaineering is one of the oldest and one of the most cultural sports one can partake. Arguably the first recorded mountain ascents were from Rome's Hadrian, on his expedition to Mount Etna, to see the sunrise at the height of the mountain. As to the reason for such an expedition, it's most likely that mountaineering is quite different from other sports. Mark Twight of Jim Jones and Trainer to 300 Cast, for example, has written books about the uniqueness of mountaineering. The mountaineering sport not only requires lots of skill, but terrain-specific safety measures, such as knowledge of many things, such as rock, ice, snow, lightning, avalanches. This includes knowledge of a cook and a medic. Plus, a knowledge of mountains in general, and the mountains of the different countries in particular. It's a sport that not only punishes you, but takes much fortitude to accomplish it. Horse ride of the Valkyries. It's not often that people think of the equestrians as part of the oldest sport in the world. But, horseback rides have been part of human cultures, for a long time. It's only today that it has become a sport, in the sense that we know it. The modern-day equestrian, to some circles, is an extension of a noble aristocracy pastime and that often involved the chase of foxes. But, history shows that this leisurely activity is a far cry from what horseback rides were back then. Its real use in history has been far more functional and sometimes sinister. One of the first popular domestication systems for horses came from the Middle East and Central Asia. This was often used as a transportation system. But, as civilizations rose and empires flourished, so were the use of horses beyond domestication. The ancient Romans used them as both sport and a display of brave readiness for wars to come. It was little more than a fight, but on wheels. For the Mongols, they used horses not only as part of transportation but also as a support for hunts and for herds. It's also worth a note that the Romans and the Mongols have both used chariots and war horses to invade and conquer lands, in devastating fashion. And, both men and women of history participated in this horseback sport, if you are to account the Greek stories of the near-mythic Amazon nomads known as the Scythians. Mortal Kombat. Apart from hunters and gatherers, men and women have also been warriors. And, although the history of war has been filled with violence and the blood of billions, it appears to us today via entertainment channels like the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The setups, of course, are not full-scale war zones but singles combat. It isn't any less bloody, of course, and calamities have happened, in and out of the cage. But, that has been the case of all fight sports, from ancient tribes and street fights. Probably the cultures that sparked this the most were the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans. To the ancient Greeks, the sport of pankration, meaning all power. A fight until the victor defeats decisively their opponent. And, to the ancient Romans, the gladiator sport of the Colosseum. A fight to the death, for the entertainment of all. If one takes a look back at the history of fights as bright, spectacular sport and dark entertainment, then it's no guess why humanity wants to see fight championships. They are both sides, rolled into one. Pawn, king, and queen. For every great conqueror worth the salt, there have been teachers worth their name. Some of the best sieges over property weren't fought with ferocity, but also by wit. So, it stands to reason that chess has not only been one of humanity's oldest pastimes but also one the most sophisticated. Chess was supposedly invented by a Mughal emperor in ancient Persia, via a request as he was bored with almost all the games in his collection. Most of the games, at the time, had been games of probability and luck. Many of these games come in their new versions you see in casinos today. So, the emperor called for inventive teachers to make a game that rely on the intellect, and not on luck and probability. What came out was a game that eventually became what we know today as chess, the zero-sum game. Except for the history of its pieces and the formulations of its strategies, chess has operated with the same ideas. You start off with pieces intact, and except for the one who makes their first piece attack, the sides progress in logical fashion, one after another. The game takes both observational intellect but also creative strategies and tactics. Though many today engage chess as a form of leisure or when they're bored, some have used chess as an approach to life. Examples of this are the legendary Garry Kasparov, whose approach to understanding politics is via the mechanism of chess. Or Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, who uses chess as an approach of retrograde analysis, often used to backtrack recollection of events, and even wisely spot problems in grammar. Is it any surprise that the greatest detectives in stories also use the chess-like mechanics to solve the crime? The Archer's creative. Once humans were able to harness the power of fire and had access to cooked food, it was not too long for others' skills to arrive. One of the greatest skills to set humans apart was the craft of the bow and arrow weapon, as well as throwing knives. In a follow-up book, Christopher McDougall argues in Natural Born Heroes, that art and science of projectile weaponry provided the brain framework for humans to create. Such an ability to make this technology not only gave humans refinement skills to adjust to any target, but also mathematical accuracy and precision. This supposedly gave humans a frame by which to map things around the hunting environment, not to mention a cleaner kill to the vital areas of the prey. The sport of archery is not only one of the oldest sports, but it's also part of a lineage crucial to human evolution. A great example is from the Mongols and their former empire, armed with hunters trained to kill their prey or enemies from horseback, quickly and accurately. Or even in the biblical story of David, who was a herd slingshot extraordinaire, that bested the tower known as Goliath. Many today turn to the sport in order to improve their accuracy or for another reason, but gamers of first-person shooters and laser tag enthusiasts know it's always had a war element to it as well. What do you think is an undervalued or overhyped sport? Do you have a sport that makes you think and feel like a superhero? And, did you know that some strange sports have a world record? If you're interested in that, please check out our video on world records you probably didn't know about. Less of a swimmer, and more a chess master. Then you might want to try our You're a Genius if you can solve this video, to see if you can solve the problems. Need more brain power for the problems and puzzles of life? Head on to our Can We Use 100% of Our Brain Capacity video for tips and tricks to multiply your performance.